So we have this idea regarding the appropriateness of speech. I'll offer a platitude. Well, fuck you! When is that appropriate? Some people claim that, well, it's never appropriate. For instance, there are some people on the FCC, or were, that feel that the word fuck in any context whatsoever is never appropriate outside the hours of 10 p.m. To 6 a.m. How did that happen? Well, 5 people of the Supreme Court thought that this child's soul was permanently scarred and seared for eternity because he was riding in the car with his father, and Pacifica Radio decided to play George Carlin's Filthy Words in the middle of the daytime, and the father looked over at his child and his head was spinning around and smoke was coming out of his ears, and he careened off the road, took off hundreds of mailboxes, crawled to the nearest FCC location, filed a complaint, and then these 3 out of 9 justices, oh heavens, we have to do something. And anyway, they came up with this Pacifica decision, essentially saying that the Supreme Court was going to censor speech, but they would leave free speech to vampiric hours, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You could broadcast anything you want. Otherwise, children's minds will be permanently seared, scarred, and smoldering, and whatever. So what this indicates is a conflict between mob rule and the idea that these rights are something that should not be subject to the whim of a majority. For instance, you could look back in history and you could say, well, there were laws against abortion and against adultery and laws against homosexuality and all of these other things. And what you see there is you see that all of these laws were enacted by some sort of majority, whether it was 5 people out of 9, or whether it was a parliament, or what it was. It was something that did not have to do with residual rights, except in terms of speech. So myself personally, I don't feel that it's proper for government to do these things. I think that the Pacifica case was a wrong imposition, and that times change. But back to the appropriateness of fuck you, I think that it's, like I said, I think it's appropriate. It's appropriate means of conveying to someone that has pissed you off to such an extent that short of resorting to violence, this is the most effective means of human expression as to letting them know exactly how they've made you feel. So to that extent, I think that it is appropriate. And I think that at this time in our evolution as human beings, that we should be able to deal with these things, you know. On the one hand, you have this idea that there was some primordial perfection, a Garden of Eden, and that we should strive to return to this Garden of Eden. But really what it is if there was a Garden of Eden, it would be some snapshot of evolution, because the only thing that we really have in terms of certainty in life is love and evolution. So, for instance, someone like Aleister Crowley would say, well, You know, you could render love subservient to will and do all sorts of magical things. Well, yes, you know, you had the Inquisition and things like that. Um, uh, you know, that doesn't mean that you have to repress him or censor him or burn his books, because it's one input of many into the whole evolutionary mix of things. It's how we evolve and go forward as a people rather than stagnate and come up with all sorts of bizarre mutations like the Conservative Party and the conservative movement and everything that they believe in. So I think that it's fine if you want to be a conservative and you want to, you know, go off and live in Idaho and have, or you know, uh, not have Negroes in your immediate area or something. You know, but when you start forcing it on people, you start forcing those ideas and using government to impose those ideas, or even the private sector acting hand in hand with government, then you're doing something that is beyond liberty. It's beyond liberty and it becomes a crime. And essentially that's what censorship is. And it's time that college radio and MySpace and these other places would just accept the fact that life begins at birth and ends at death, and that normal people really don't have the time and shouldn't be subject to all of these conservative assholes.